Hello, beautiful. So glad to welcome you to an episode of the Makaranda Podcast. Today, I am here with an apprentice of mine who has been studying with me for almost the last year, Lindsay Lynch.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Eleanor.
What an honor to have you here. I'm so grateful. And Lindsay and I are going to be sharing with you a rundown of what we learned from our psychedelic science.
We learned a lot.
We went to a 5-day conference and went to an all-day conference on neuroscience and the brain. And we learned about some indigenous traditions and wisdom. And we're here, Lindsay and I, and the Psychedelic Science Conference put on by MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies in Denver in June of 2025. They brought us here. They brought this science here to legitimize psychedelic therapy with science-backed evidence. And science is really catching up to what indigenous lineages and yogic traditions have known for centuries. And as a therapist myself, I feel inspired to bring this work to my podcast, to you all today. And we will, in our show notes, have lots of people who we are referencing, and please look up what we are sharing as this research is helping transform the psychedelic and the mental, emotional, physical health landscape of our world today in 2025.
Yeah, that's a great recap, Elle. And the beauty behind the MAPS conference, is really this idea of the multidisciplinary aspect. There were many legs of what we were learning. There's the science aspect, the community aspect, the policy. There was also a lot of fun surrounding it and networking and just to see this web of of practitioners and politicians and spiritual leaders and indigenous tribal members just sharing their wealth of knowledge in this space was just really inspiring. And yeah, we learned a lot and we'll share a lot.
We're going to share as best we can for the next hour or so, and we're so grateful to be at the forefront of this knowledge. And I think for me, what particularly has been fascinating me recently, in having done thousands of psychedelic ceremonies myself, is this curiosity around the science of transformation. Why is it that psychedelics are helping us move beyond what talk therapy just cannot touch? And so
Yeah.
let's start there.
Yeah. And really digging into what is happening in our brains
Right.
that is acting as a catalyst for healing.
So background, trauma lives in the body, not so much in the mind. And the traumatic experience disrupts our nervous system's ability to self-regulate. And so under trauma, the part of the brain that we focus on quite a lot is called the prefrontal cortex. And it lives right behind your forehead. If you were to take your fingers and just place them right above your eyebrows, you can feel your prefrontal cortex. And during trauma, that part of the brain actually shuts down. And the limbic system, this fight or flight system, turns on and actually becomes overactive and tends to loop.
Yeah.
And so talk therapy struggles because trauma survivors and people who've experienced trauma in their life often do not have the words to be able to explain what is happening.
Yeah, so think about what the prefrontal cortex, that's your rational region of the brain, your ability to make reason of the outside world and what's happening around you, paired with language. And so with trauma and not being able to find the words, it really makes sense because that's getting shut down. And it's going back towards the limbic system, which is in hyperactive mode. And it's really just triggering your amygdala, which is, that kind of caveman sense of fight or flight and how do I stay alive here, paired with an overactive emotional state. And we can, really understand how that can take over.
And psychedelics have this, and specifically, we are going to focus on psilocybin and LSD. Those are the two medicines that we will be focusing on. But when we're using the word psychedelics pretty broadly, but what we're learning from a scientific perspective is that psychedelics bypass the rational mind, which allow us to tap into the healing that can come through image, through sensation in the body, and through vibration. And so when we pair psychedelics with music, talk therapy, and meditation, we're finding that there's this sweet spot. There's this magic.
Yeah, it's basically just catapulting you really directly to kind of bridging the gap between this emotional and somatic state. We're able to really regulate the nervous system and activate the vagus nerve and foster the sense of safety and healing with all of those kind of legs combined.
And this isn't, we're not talking about this when we're necessarily at a concert. However, psychedelics on a recreational side of things have their place. And I also love psychedelics for recreational use. And we are, during this conversation, really talking about psychedelics, meditation, music, talk therapy in the therapeutic context. So being really clear about when we say the word set and setting, set is referring to our mindset and preparing for the psychedelic experience, and then the setting. Where are we? What is the music being played? Do we have a meditation practice in place before going into the psychedelic experience so that we have more agency than we might to be able to notice what is happening within the brain and the body to support us with really learning how to regulate ourselves when we typically tend to be in dysregulation. We have a crazy world out there. There is an enormous amount of chaos. And what this allows for us to do when the therapeutic work is done well allows for us to find a sense of regulation of ourselves and co-regulation from the music, from the other people in the group, from the guide or the leader of the ceremony. And that can help us find relaxation within the body, and then awareness and new insights can start to form.
Beautifully said, Elle. Intention, intention, intention.
Yeah. I want to talk more about the brain and the mind and what we know about the brain. The brain encodes experiences through what we call beliefs, what we believe to be true about the world. And beliefs shape our lenses, right? What if I believe I'm a lucky person, I will perceive that I am lucky no matter what happens. If I perceive that the world is out to get me, that is what, if I believe that, that is what I will see. And so the belief system we're learning, and we learned this from Dr. Carhart Harris, is that the top down system is how our beliefs are created. And this can trigger our symptoms of dysregulation, essentially. And psychedelics actually disrupt this pattern, making the mind more flexible and less rigid. So it allows for us to think differently.
Yeah. So Dr. Carhart Harris, who's a pioneer in the psychedelic studies space, he founded the Department of Psychedelic Study Research at the Empirical College of London. He's a wonderfully talented and impressive researcher. He founded a model called the Rebus model. It is the relaxed beliefs under psychedelics. So basically, what he found in this study is, with psychedelics, we are able to kind of let go of this stronghold that we have in these firm, rigid beliefs that we have from our families, our upbringings, our experiences. It, like you said, Eleanor, it's our lens and our encoding on how we perceive the world and how we receive from others. So with this Rebus model and the effect of psychedelics, it does reduce this maladaptive pattern from our embedded life. It quote unquote frees up the ignored or suppressed memories and emotions, and it opens up our new perspectives and emotional processing.
I like to think of the mind, and this was actually shared by one of the researchers, Lindsay Cameron. She said psychedelics are like a metal bar. Our mind, excuse me, is like a metal bar. Okay. And if you think of a metal bar and you hold both ends of the metal bar and you're trying to bend the metal bar with all your strength, it's really difficult to do. And that's kind of what we're trying to do in talk therapy. We've got this metal bar and we're just like, ooh, let me just try to change the way that I've been thinking for so long. And what psychedelics do are they actually heat up that metal bar so that we can bend it much more easily towards a new understanding. And it is critical to have the emotional, physical, spiritual support as you're in that bending of the bar so that you can set an intention to make your mind, your choices, your decisions for your life to go in a way that is healthy and that is supportive. Because that's not always the case. If we're not choosing our thoughts wisely, then we'll just have this metal bar that is bending in a way that's not actually supportive for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so when, that's why we really stress the preparation before psychedelics and the integration afterwards, so that we're being mindful with the malleability and with the flexibility of our mind during this period of time
This critical window that has been reopened.
for learning.
Yes, exactly.
And the other thing I'll say about that is that, chronic stress, of which the American Psychological Association in June said that 75% of Americans said that they're meteor moderately to severely stressed. We know that stress actually causes cortical atrophy in the brain. And what we're learning about psychedelics is that it actually reverses this and starts to allow for the little teeny tiny neurons in our brains to start to grow again. And so, as they're growing and we're in this critical period of learning, we need to be super mindful about what we're listening to, what we're reading, the music that's coming in, the TV shows, the way that we're talking to ourselves, the way that we're connecting with other people so that we can support ourselves in this process of growth.
Yeah, really, really well said. Yeah, something else that Dr. Lindsay Cameron shared in terms of chronic stress was chronic stress. Not only does it reduce the number of dendrites on the neurons, and we'll move into explaining what dendrites are and neuron structure, but that chronic stress can actually decrease the size of your brain. And that blew my mind and just really shows the severity of, elongated mass amounts of cortisol being released in the brain. The importance of self-care.
And with psilocybin, we're also learning that with stress, oftentimes the motivation decreases, and when we take psilocybin, we our motivation starts to return. Our fear extinction becomes easier to find. So essentially, we're able to find ourselves within our normal waking beta brainwave that's not in a hyperactive state, but that's in a more calm rest and digest. And psilocybin specifically targets the 5-HT2A receptor, which is our serotonin receptor. So that's why it's really important if you are taking SSRIs, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, that you are really mindful about taking psychedelics because they tend to work on these receptors that this antidepressant is pushing down, right? The inhibitor, it's inhibiting the amount of serotonin that's being distributed in the brain. So then you take these psychedelics and then more serotonin starts to come in and then the body doesn't know what to do with it or how to regulate it. So that's just a cautionary explanation for those of us who are taking pharmaceutical medications to be extra mindful while on those medications for whatever reason. I want to talk about neurons and dendrites. Can you explain that, Lindsay? And
Yeah.
we dive into that more and then talk about brain waves and perception.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk about neurons and dendrites.
We went to this all day incredible class
Mhm.
from 9 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah. 9 to 6 p.m. actually. I
Okay,
just
yeah.
want to call that out. Yeah, it was led by a really amazing psychopharmacologist, neuroscientist, Dr. Manesh Gurn. A quick plug, you can find him on Instagram or YouTube. His account is the Psychedelic Scientist, and he has a lot of awesome like PDFs and downloads and one-sheeters for the information that I'll be covering on like the intro to neuroscience and psychedelics and their impacts on the brain. So definitely check him out, Psychedelic Scientist, Dr. Manesh Gurn.
He's also very cute.
Yeah, yeah, we really enjoyed that part of the conference. All right, so our brains. So our brains are built up of actually out throughout our entire bodies. There's neurons all throughout our entire bodies. And on these neurons are these little branches, we'll call them dendrites. And when one experiences trauma, these dendrites, the little sticks on our neurons, they shrink. And the importance of dendrites is that they basically are sending out these communication signals to the rest of the neurons throughout your brain. And these signals are telling your brain to speak to the different networks of your body. So, we have, let's see, the soma, let's see if I can pronounce this, somatomotor uh, network of the brain, that is movement and body. And then we also have the limbic network of the brain, that's emotion and memory. The default no mode network, which maybe you've heard of, it's kind of how we make sense of the world. It's how we make sense of ourselves. Think of that when we're daydreaming. Our default mode network is really going off. So when we experience trauma and our dendrites get smaller and smaller, it is restricting or inhibiting our body's ability to communicate with itself.
And I'll say it's not just traumatic, it's when we are in fear, it's when we are in collapse, it's when we are in worry.
Stress,
It
yeah.
any type of collapse of the physical emotional body, that's when the dendrites start to break off.
Hmm.
And there are, just for context, we believe about 100 billion with a B neurons within the brain, the gut, and the spinal cord. That's mostly where these live, just to give you an idea. And so psychedelics actually allow for there to be a collapse in the hierarchies of which brain networks can actually speak to one another, so that we start to have different, we can like see color and that smells a specific way that typically you'd never be able to smell color before, and you can see music painted through the air. There's different ways that the brain networks start to communicate with one another.
Exactly. I think Dr. Harris classified it as a brain scramble, if you will. So when our networks are usually functioning in our typical normal state, day to day, these networks are working in silo. So our auditory cortex or our visual network, they're working together to activate those senses. Under psychedelics, those networks are cross-connecting. Just like you said, that's why during ceremony one can see music or smell color, which is really fascinating. So thinking of that rapid movement, within that, there is this hyperproduction of neurons. And with that, neuroplasticity is occurring. This neuroplasticity and plasticity means change. This is a change in our neurons, a change in the number, and this expedited growth does sustain. So that's, great again for this opening of a critical period of relearning, rewiring the brain. Another call out when speaking about neuroplasticity, I found it really interesting. I think Dr. Lindsay Cameron shared this, that when we hear the term neuroplasticity, we assume or associate it with something positive, like good plasticity. There is good and there's also bad neuroplasticity. Think of, nicotine or cocaine addiction. So basically, what's happening in our brain is that, you're smoking a cigarette, your brain is learning and getting this hit of dopamine and saying, that was really nice, I'd like that again. With this new formed neuroplasticity, it's just wanting you to have another cigarette. It's basically just saying, my brain just wants nicotine. Whereas this form of good plasticity, or what psilocybin supports, it's called metaplasticity, which is the plasticity of plasticity. It's basically the capacity to become more adaptable. So when we leave or, exit a psilocybin ceremony, we're not craving more mushrooms or more psilocybin. We're actually just in a malleable state where we're more interested, more curious about the world around us, more interested in ourselves and that healing and that growing, and just asking ourselves, how can we find more of that newness?
I love that, because oftentimes there's this conversation among growth and the learning world where people wonder, well, am I going to become addicted to this? And I'll say, of course, anything can be addictive, right? It is our relationship to the experience that we need to be really clear about. And when we're in these critical periods where our brains are able to communicate, where we're able to access other realms, where we're able to talk with our ancestors, where we're able to see ourselves as a child and comfort her, where we're able to understand what we've been through and how it's brought us to who we are today, where we learn about how we judge others, but ultimately it's really just a reflection of how we're judging ourselves. We couldn't come to these awarenesses and these visions and these understandings if we were just operating in the same mode of thinking. And so being mindful about how we're speaking about these substances and these experiences, it's all a matter of how we choose to show up to them. Because during these critical periods, what are we choosing to relearn? We go through these critical periods when we're young, when we're learning language, when we're really young, we're in a critical period. The default mode network, for example, is not solidified before age 6. And so what we're doing is we're reopening that period during the psychedelic experience. So, what are you teaching yourself? What are you learning? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you going home to after the journey? And how do you take care of yourself in continuing to learn and grow during this metaplasticity time to support your growth?
Beautiful.
Let's talk about music.
Let's talk about music. I like that one too. Yeah, I attended this amazing workshop. It was a half-day workshop. It was led by this group of researchers. I'll have to pull the name and we'll put them in the show notes. But basically, they a lot of psychotherapists, mostly psychotherapists, a couple, um, you know, thought leaders in this psychedelic space that aren't classically trained, if you will, but have a lot of experiential background. So they rented a cabin on the East Coast and worked with, I believe it was ketamine therapy. And their focus was music's impact on healing during ceremony and after ceremony. Again, Dr. Robin Carhart Harris, we'll name drop him a lot. He and a couple other neuroscientists published a paper. If you want to look it up, it's amazing. It's called Music as a Hidden Therapist. So, what these psychotherapists found was the importance of music in evoking memory and emotional processing. A lot of this emotional processing is done in the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain responsible for storing our memories. So that's really potent in music therapy, also in psychedelic therapy. Um, so what they found was that music experience significantly reduced depression for weeks after their experience in the mountains. So whereas, some of the other experiments that people have done is to see if it's the dosage or the intensity of the medicine in the ceremony, if that is what's responsible for this therapeutic healing. During this research, they found that it's not actually the intensity or the dosage. It is the, again, set and setting, the music that the people experience and the emotions that were brought up and the memories that were evoked. That is what really played hand in hand with this therapeutic healing.
My husband is an incredible musician, as is my sister Kathleen, and the healing that comes when they sing their songs during our work is it it does the healing on a vibrational level. And when what we're learning about vibration and about how everything is vibration. I mean, the dendrites are vibrating at a speed, sending information from one neuron to another based on our thoughts and based on our environment. And so I want to invite us all to be really mindful of the music that we're listening to. We have some incredible playlists that you can look up John Medina, Jon Medina, my husband, on Spotify. He has some incredible playlists that we can link in the show notes that really support the integration after doing this work because music magnifies our ability to heal and you don't have to work at it. The music just lands on your skin and vibrates at a level that is so that can be when the sounds are really supportive and when they're in actually major versus minor chords. And do you want to share a little bit more about what you learned there?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a discussion with East Forest, who's also an amazing musician. So he was a part of this great workshop that I did. And we were talking about the difference between minor chords and major chords. So minor thirds are often associated with sadness or introspection. It's creating a sense of tension and dissonance. So in comparison, major chord, it's a little bit more predictable. It's something that we're used to hearing. It's more consonant. So these intervals of major and minor chords can, again, stoke this tension, this resonance and dissonance. The tension can also evoke this feeling of no more. So with minor chords and a fast playing minor chord can evoke anger and frustration, whereas a slow playing minor chord is more like melancholic and sad. So really using music to coax or evoke strong feelings is kind of what we're going for during ceremony. Um, that again, that feeling of no more, when you get over that hump, it's showing and reminding yourself that you can do hard things. And that is really, really an important component, I believe, of ceremonies. Again, going back to the hippocampus and our memories and experiences and how that is impacted with music and with psychedelics, our history and our experience is impacted by how we listen to music. So with the processing of emotion and the triggering of memories, again, that is evoking neuroplasticity. What else evokes neuroplasticity? Psychedelics.
And meditation.
And meditation. A lot. A lot definitely evoke that. But when pairing, again, music and psychedelics, this just really beautiful dance occurs for therapeutic healing. Another correlation with psychedelics and music is, resonance, harmony, resistance. Sound familiar? Psychedelics and music also both evoke this reward circuitry. Another fun fact that we learned, psychedelics increase blood pressure while music lowers blood pressure. So in ceremony, excuse me, music increases safety.
Mm. And this is not new information. I mean, yes, we have the research that's coming out now, but if we look across global traditions, we look at the Shipibo Canibo, we look at the Huichol people from Mexico, we look at the Native American church, we look at the Vegetalismo in Peru. We we know that there has been healers for all of time have actually been called singers, where sound and vibration are the technology of transformation. The drumming, the getting into a trance, the moving of the body. I went to the end of a talk I caught from I don't remember who was giving it. I went to so many, but it was really powerful. This man was talking about, all of the different ceremonies from our indigenous cultures, and that there are so many things that we see across the board, and sound and song and singing is at the top of the list in ceremonies. Ceremonies also, I'll name a couple of more. There's many traditions say no sex before ceremony and no sex after with self or other. This allows for people to stay clear, to be in their own energy, to work with their own experience of what it is to be them versus intermingling with others, even if they're married. So being in your own energy is critical. There's a sense of fasting across many traditions so that you don't have your 75 to 80% of your energy every single day goes to your digestion, which is something that I learned from The Conscious Cleanse, an incredible book that I always have my students do and follow before coming into ceremony with us. So this is basically creating a dieta where you take out specific inflammatory foods so that when you come into ceremony, you are clear. Your body, the medicine, the psilocybin, the ayahuasca, the LSD, the DMT is not immediately going to reduce inflammation in the body. You've already done that because you've prepared your body with the food that you've been eating leading up to the circle. The other thing that is common across traditions is prayer. All night vigils, staying up all night and being in prayer, in song for the waters, for our earth, for each other, for our children, for our mothers, for our land, for our air. Like there's lots of conversation around how do we be in prayer to our earth and how do we listen to our earth, which as a nature therapist, I mean, that just touches me so deeply. Like, wow, if we listened to our Mother Earth, who gives us a home to live, to who gives us food to eat, who gives us water to drink, to get, who gives us an ability to have a life, when we remember the grandiosity of our home, which is this earth, then we are able to take care of ourselves and each other and this planet with so much more respect and care. And the other thing that we saw across global traditions is this idea of symbol and metaphor, where we're letting the visions that come to us in the ceremony guide us into alternate states, to guide us into non-ordinary states, to allow for the all-night ceremony to catapult us into the dreams that we are having, to dream a new dream for our planet, one that is of connection, one that it is of oneness. I mean, the one thing I hear from my students across the board is I learn how to listen to myself with psychedelics, and I learn that we really are all connected. And it's not just I know in my brain that we're all connected, but they're through this technology of working with the mushrooms and working with psychedelics, there's this knowing that starts to come through the body that really awakens people up to their divine nature. And as a spiritual teacher, what more do we want? We could talk about our divine nature all day, but when we feel it and we know it, it takes it to such a different level of trust and understanding of what the heck we're doing here. And group work is extraordinarily helpful. No one that I know of who's studying these traditional lineages have been doing this psychedelic work on their own. It is always in community because we co-regulate, meaning my nervous system helps Lindsay's nervous system. There's drumming, there's dancing, there's chanting, and there's this sense of belonging. Like when you go through a ceremony with somebody, there's a deep bond that forms. And there's this sense of rites of passage that we can create for ourselves and for our community, that helps us balance the bigness of the lessons that start to come, and we can hold each other during and after the experience for sustained growth and love of each other.
Mm-mm-mm. So well said. And it's true. I have experienced it firsthand. Uh,
Me too.
yeah, it's palpable. And, you know, I, speaking for myself, do take those learnings from being in ceremony into my day to day. And I think of the others in my group all the time and feel still so connected. And yeah, I actually saw a couple of them at the MAPS conference, and I hadn't seen them since ceremony. And it's just that sense of safety and belonging and connection is still just as prominent as it was during ceremony.
And I'll also say it depends on who you're sitting with. So being really mindful about who that is and who
Hmm.
you're really giving your neuroplasticity over to,
That's true.
and what you're how you're choosing to engage with the community is important.
Hmm.
I want to now speak to something that can support you if you do choose to go on this journey of change and if you really do want to change your life. um, it's up to you. The medicine helps catapult us, but the ceremony and psychedelics really just reveal to us who we are. So many people might say, "Oh, I'm nervous about what's going to come up." And I just like to say, you're just going to meet yourself. So start to take care of yourself. And so, how do we do that? And I'm going to share a foundational tool that I share with all of my students, and that's really working with the light, working with light. I am a spiritual teacher and I hold a lot of different traditions in my awareness of truth. And I know that light is the source of love. And that's what it's all about. And so as you go into anything, as you're going to, whenever students leave my house, I say, okay, wrap yourself in golden white light, place I used to say a bubble. Now I'm starting to say a pyramid. So place a, pyramid of light, such a strong structure in a pyramid of radiant light and love, literally around your body. And you can have a meditation practice where you imagine this frequency as a protection over you to help you stabilize yourself. So you're going into a crowd, you just put that pyramid of white light around you and just visualize it. And learning how to visualize psychedelics really they open our visual mode, right? This what is the term? Let me find it. This visual brain network, right? So you can see more with the psychedelics. And so this network, all of a sudden, you have so much access to it. So as you're working with psychedelics or as you're working with meditation, which is also a way to access non-ordinary states of consciousness, you can think of yourself as this white, bright light because you are. And when we die, the Tibetans always say, go to the brightest light you can find. That is the directive. And what we see across the board is that the fear of death is the root of suffering. And psychedelics help us meet that fear directly, and we learn to ungrip. We learn how to open ourselves and release resistance. Otherwise, we're really going to struggle. But that's where part of the learning
Hmm.
happens. And so if we can just remind ourselves that this golden white light is our teacher and is our friend, and if we can go to it and we can actually use the support of the sun, of the moon, of the Milky Way galaxy, all the stars in the sky, of Venus, of Mars, of Jupiter, like, all these incredible planets that are full of light, all the suns in the universe. And if we can channel that through our bodies, through our crown, the top of our head, and through us, anything can be healed. Everything can be healed by the light. And I really believe that. And I have had a tremendous amount of experience working with light just by doing that, literally sitting in meditation and calling in all of these different the lights from the universe. And the healing is miraculous.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, the golden light is important, and I try to, mimic it in my meditations, and I feel, a lot of growth from, after our ceremonies and hearing you give that advice to protect yourselves with light. At first, I was like, well, I don't really know if I get what you mean. And then, walking outside and feeling the sun hitting my face and, just nature, really, at the end of the day. Also, fun fact, did you know that fresh soil, like in our gardens and out in the world around us, has natural antidepressant properties? So,
Love that.
white light, garden soil.
You set.
Yeah.
You
All
golden.
all good. You don't need no big pharma, just nature.
The other thing I'll say too is that as you go into psychedelic work, if you choose to go that route, and just even in general, even if you're like, "Oh, I don't know if that's for me, totally fine. You'll know if and when it is. But you have to know that your mind is the master, and you must learn to master your mind. So, anytime someone is going to sit with me, it is a meditation practice is absolutely essential. If you're not sitting in meditation, don't come. You're not, you are the thinker. You are not the thoughts. And so remember, please, that your mind is a tool. It is not the boss. You get to choose your thoughts. You get to shape your life however you want to. You know how to change the channel on the TV. So change the channel on your thoughts and make them one of love, of light, of high vibration that is trusting of this universe at large. You can choose to live in fear. You can choose to live in stress. You can choose to allow for those dendrites to break off. Or you can choose to open yourself to new ways of thinking, to being kind and loving and compassionate. And I want to remind you as well that we live in a universe that wants your well-being, that wants you to be healthy, that is full of kindness and love. And I see that when we train our minds to believe this, going back to how we believe, our thoughts are what are going to predict the outcome of our life experience, which, in other words, is just an amplification in the psychedelic experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they say. Psychedelics are really just an amplifier.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what are you amplifying? And they
Mm-hmm.
show us so clearly, like, oh my gosh, look at what I'm doing. I don't know if I want to be doing that. Let me make a different decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Psychedelic, the root of the word psyche meaning self and delic meaning reveal. So you're just revealing yourself and meeting yourself again.
And what a gift. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Socrates, to know thyself is what we're here for. And to have access and living in Colorado and being legally able to work with psilocybin mushrooms. I mean, thank God, this decriminalized nature movement, I'm like, hallelujah,
Mm-hmm.
decriminalize nature. I mean,
Uh-huh.
how about legalize nature? How about nature as our healer? I mean,
Snapping my fingers.
come on. Come on.
Preach.
She has everything
Mm-hmm.
that we need. And some people turn up their nose at synthetics, but everything comes from nature. And so,
Mm-hmm.
how are we choosing to work and be in collaboration with our Mother Earth and with nature and with our own minds and with our thoughts and with our community? And that's what this work really gets to show us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Psychedelics have absolutely changed my life.
Mine too. Absolutely. 100%.
And I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for these researchers that we were learning from.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, there's
There's
so
so
much,
much.
so much.
Yeah.
And we're just
Mhm.
on the precipice, right?
Scratching the surface.
We're just starting to open up to psychedelic research. And in so many other places, it's still illegal, which is mind blowing
Mhm.
because, well, I won't get into it.
A
But
different episode.
different episode. But we want the raising of consciousness to happen on a collective level. And in fact, that's how it needs to happen.
Right.
So if you have more questions, please reach out to us. I would love for Lindsay to share this last piece.
Yeah, I'd love to. So my last session that I attended at the MAPS conference was led by Paul Stamets. I think he's probably one of the most famous mycologists out there right now. He was amazing. But he was sharing the study on mushroom patches and mushroom patch growth, and that researchers had found that lightning and thunderstorms accelerated the growth of mushroom forests. But what they actually discovered and found was that it wasn't the lightning, that it was actually the thunder. It was the vibrational energy in this range of 40 to 80 hertz that caused this mycelial network to grow like tenfold. So that's suggesting that mushrooms are responding not, just to light, but to sound and vibration. Again, music plug, and how important like sound and vibration and connection is to, this growth of networks
And
among
our
us.
and our words. Our
Yes.
words are vibration. Our thoughts are vibration. Our how we show up to the world is a vibrational frequency. And it is our job at the Makaranda method to teach you how to raise your vibration, to support the vibration to one actually back in sync with our earth.
Yeah.
And the mushrooms are here for us, and they are listening, and we get to be in healthy, right relationship with them and bring an enormous amount of reverence to this mind revealing, to this self revealing that happens, so that we can be better stewards, more loving, more kind with ourselves and with each other. And it goes whatever way you put your attention.
Right. And leaning into it with the utmost compassion and gratitude and respect for the medicine and the lineages that they come from, and just really, really honoring the cultures and just showing up with curiosity, with reverence, and with respect.
And with deep listening. These are big experiences that we can have, and we need to, in my opinion, come with a bow and with an open mind and open heart, so that we can be of service. And John and I lived in Mexico for several years and studied with some incredible Mexican teachers, and to be able to work and learn and live with this knowledge is a tremendous gift, and we're so grateful for that.
So grateful.
So grateful.
We're in sync.
We're in sync. We're in co-regulation.
Exactly. I'll just drop another fun fact because I can't get enough of them. When people hum or sing together, did you know that their heartbeats actually synchronize? So when we just like,
Let's do that.
let's.
Did you hum with us? We can do it again. Let's do it again.
We are in sync, baby.
Thank you for listening. This is Eleanor Evans Medina and Lindsay Lynch.
This is Lindsay Lynch. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for having me, Eleanor. And thank you so much for attending this amazing conference with me.
Oh my gosh, it was so fun.
It was so fun.
We were just learning and bouncing ideas off each other, and this is really just the beginning. So thank you for being here. Do your own research. Let us know if you have questions. and take care of yourselves. Lots of love.